I gotta move a little quicker on this video than I did the last video. I'm sorry it ended so abruptly. I only have the free version of the recording app and I can only go for 15 minutes. So let's get started right away. We're going to get through a lot of content today. Continuing with prophecies. It says that he would die with other transgressors. I already pulled up the verses. He would die with other transgressors. It said he was numbered with the transgressors. He bore the sins of many, making intercession for those transgressors. If you remember the thief on the cross, he said, "Lord, remember me when you go into paradise." And Jesus said, "I will." It says that soldiers would pierce his side on the cross. Zechariah, it said, "They will look upon me whom they have pierced." That's an incredible prophecy there too. And those are just 5 of the hundreds of prophecies about Jesus. Ancient prophecies fulfilled by minor and major prophets. Here's another incredible one. Isaiah prophesies in chapter 13 of his book that Babylon, one of the greatest kingdoms of the world, will be overthrown by God. That would be like us prophesying, or somebody saying that within the next couple years, China will fall. China, not likely to fall. I'm sure that a lot of people gave him some side eye when he said that, and yet it happened. Babylon fell, and really we don't even remember the kingdom of Babylon or anything in it. Isaiah 44:28 predicts King Cyrus of Persia by name, even though he wouldn't be born for 200 years. And he goes on to talk about him, what he'd do. He says of Cyrus, "He's my shepherd, and I will accomplish all that I please. He will say of Jerusalem, let it be rebuilt." And so it predicted he not only predicted Cyrus, but he also predicted what Cyrus would do. That's incredible. And this is documented that Isaiah is written years before Cyrus. And so either a really weird coincidence happened where there was this king 200 years in the future who was named Cyrus, and it all lined up, or the Bible is true. I just think that there's too many pieces, too many weird things to have happen at once for the Bible not to be true, and for Isaiah not to be a prophet in that instance. Some people even think that the Old Testament prophecies are being fulfilled in modern times. And I'm not saying that this is a prophecy I necessarily believe has been fulfilled. What I'm saying is that some people do. I think there's good evidence for it. For instance, Ezekiel says, "I will settle a large population on you, the whole house of Israel. The ruined site will be rebuilt." Israel was abandoned, undeveloped, bleak, barren. I believe there's more Jews in America than there are in Israel, because Israel was abandoned. And yet in 1948 became a nation again. That's pretty incredible. If that is true, that Ezekiel prophesied something that came true 2,000 years later, and it was called Israel, after the ancient times. Some people really believe that them becoming a nation again is a sign of future events, and if that's the case, it's pretty incredible. Though you can look more into that. Let's continue on. The Scriptures, astounding unity. Imagine you're being told you have to read a book for a class, and you're like, "Ugh, I hate reading." I'm just kidding. Maybe you like reading, but the book has the following characteristics. It's written over 2,000 years, 66 different books in one volume, 40 different authors, and these authors aren't all like the same, right? Because a book can have multiple authors, but if they're all psychologists, then you're like, oh, okay, they all believe the same thing. These authors are shepherds, kings, fishermen, prophets, tax collectors, doctors, scientists, scholars, cupbearers. And you're like, what? And it's written in 3 different languages, and translated into your language. And of course, the Bible's three languages. It was written in Greek, it was written in Hebrew, and it was written in Aramaic. What would you expect that book to be? A mess. That's what it would be. It'd be horrible. It'd be so disjointed. It would, going from book to book, you would have no clue what's happening. I mean, even among, let's say, if we at Community, we had all the teachers sit down. We wanted to write a novel together, and we worked on a fantasy novel about some epic adventure of somebody. I mean, it would be so disjointed because we all wrote it together. And maybe I was writing chapter 13, but I didn't read Mr. Merrill's chapter 3, and I got confused, and it'd be a mess. But the Bible's cohesive, without error or contradiction, tells one gigantic message. And that message is one of the most incredible verses in the Bible. In fact, one of my favorite verses. It says, "But these things are written, that ye might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing ye might have life through his name." All these things, whole Bible, in John's book specifically, is written to convince you that Jesus is the Messiah, the prophesied one, the Christ, and the Son of God. And in that believing, you might have life, you might get saved. John's whole book is written to convince you that Jesus is Christ, so you can get saved. Let's move on. Archaeology, uncovering the truth. Early days of archaeology, archaeologists were like, yeah, the Bible, yeah, not true. Sorry, not happening. There's no evidence of the kingdoms mentioned in the Bible. And the reality is, in 2020, where we live right now, archaeologists, most of them believe the Bible's chronology. Well, why? Some even believe it without even believing in God. Here's just 3 things that were uncovered that help prove the Bible. You have this Tel Dan monument created by the Egyptians. Describes King David ruling all of Israel. And so this is secular people talking about, hey, we're trading with King David today because he's king of Israel. Whoa. The Bible's obviously not lying about the King David, at least his kingdom ruling part. Here's another document called the Misha Stele. I don't know how to pronounce that, but it was written by the Moabites, recording a battle. Yahweh, God's personal name, is mentioned in record. They're like, this document's like, yeah, we hate Yahweh. he makes the Israelites win. And Yahweh's God's personal name. And so, not only does that help prove that the Moabites were real, Israel's enemy, but also helps prove that Israel was worshiping the God back then, the same God, and that these ancient battles of Moab were true. And here's another one, Nabonidus, I don't know, cylinder. I'm not an archaeologist, but recovered, which mentions the characters of Daniel's narrative by name. Many archaeologists believe Daniel's account of Babylonia was false. No evidence. The cylinder itself was just a narrative from some scribe, and the cylinder even says, yeah, Daniel's a ruler of this kingdom. It mentions the kings. It mentions a little bit of what's going on during that time, and all of it, the whole cylinder, is not even in the Bible or was written with God in mind. And it turns out that it all affirms what the Bible says, the whole narrative of Daniel, and because of that, all of it's true. Many archaeologists, it says, use the Bible as a historical narrative. They might not believe in the God, but they're like, yeah, the history's pretty accurate. History, confirming the account. Genealogies confirm the Bible's account in Earth's age. How far back do you know your family lineage? Well, I can think about, I met my great-grandparents but none of them spoke English, so they couldn't tell me. They couldn't tell me about any of their parents or grandparents or anything. I mean, the farthest back I know was, like I had a great grandfather who was some bigwig in Russia, So but other than that, I don't really know. But Jewish people thought family history is everything. I mean, you can take a look at the book of Luke 3, Luke 3, and you can read through this. Jesus was the son of Joseph, who's son of God, So they kept really good genealogies, and you can even see David, Jesse, Obed, Boaz, and some of the other names which are translated a little weird because it goes from Greek to Hebrew. But anyway, some Jews can even some Jews today can take their family history all the way back to Adam. That's crazy. Secular historian Josephus testifies of Christian persecution in the biblical text they hold so dearly in the 1st century. Confirms the whole account. He wasn't even a Christian. Nero attempts to stuff out Christians during his reign. The Apostle John pens the book of Revelation, teaching that Christians would worship Jesus rather than the Roman emperor. This is all well documented. Nero had reason to want to kill Christians because they wanted to worship Jesus and not him, and he wasn't too happy about that. And the last slide of today, Creationism, a better worldview. Thanks for hanging in these slides and me rushing now. Evolution is taught a lot these days, but does it really answer life's most important questions? Of course, creationism is an idea presented in the book of Genesis that God created the world. But creation really gives a better answer to these universal life questions we may have of cosmogenesis, purpose, and humanity. These are the 3 questions that scholars have thought about for centuries, millennia, and yet creationism gives us a great answer to them. And evolutionism does not. Creationism, cosmogenesis, where did the universe come from? Nehemiah 9:6 says, "Thou hast made the heavens with the earth and all things that are therein." Evolutionist Carl Sagan writes, "The cosmos is within us. We are just star stuff." Ironically, I know Carl Sagan, this very, very famous evolutionist. I know his son, and he's actually a creationist, and that makes him mad. I actually talked with him like a year ago, and he's actually a PhD cosmonaut too, and he's like, "Yep, my dad's all wrong about this. Creationism is a real worldview," and I know that makes Carl Sagan upset. It's actually kind of funny, but anyway, here's another one. Purpose. Why are we here? Creationism says man's chief end is to glorify God and enjoy Him forever. That's part of the Westminster Confession that a lot of religious groups use. Evolution says our ultimate purpose is continually evolve as a species. Wow, what a purpose! I'll tell you what, you know what your purpose is today? It's just to be a link in the chain of evolution. Go out and have fun, what in the world? Is that our true purpose? Here's the last one, because I'm going to run out of time. Humanity, what does it mean to be human? Creationism said we're created in God's image. We are a beautiful creation by God. And what does evolutionist says? Evolutionist Richard Dawkins, one of the most famous evolutionists, says our animal origins are lurking behind us and we just follow them. That's what it means to be human. It's just to follow your instincts given to you by the animals before you. I'd like to think that there's a lot more to humanity than just following our animal instincts. Well, anyway, I hope this encouraged your faith and that you have a great day. I will see you guys later.